Thanks so much for staying with us here on Live Now from Fox. I'm your host, Christina Evans. We do want to continue on with more of today's top stories. I want to show you this live look that we have there in Midtown Manhattan there in New York. We're going to be talking about Wendy Williams. I'm sure you know her, the popular talk show host, is continuing her fight against the conservatorship she's been placed in. The 60-year-old did appear a bit earlier today on Good Day New York after she was removed from her assisted living facility and taken to the hospital the day prior. She is now talking out and speaking out on that segment from the hospital, saying that she received mental competency test, saying that she is not cognitively impaired. Let's check in with our partners there at Fox 5 in New York to get a bit more insight as to how that happened there a bit earlier.
NYPD escorting Wendy Williams out of the Coterie Memory Care Facility, Hudson Yards, on Monday after the talk show host was spotted pressed up against the fifth-floor window, begging for someone to help her, even reportedly tossing out handwritten notes into the street. Hours later at Lenox Hill Hospital, Williams reportedly scoring a small win that could end her court-ordered guardianship.
Wendy took a psychological test. It's called a capacity test, where they give you 10 questions. A psychiatrist gives you 10 questions to see if you're oriented, if you have mental capacity. Wendy scored a 10 out of 10, the highest score. The psychiatrist said she has full capacity. And that's a big deal because it flies in the face of what the Guardian has said.
That Guardian controls Williams' money, what she does, and even where she lives. Last year, the 60-year-old was diagnosed with frontotemporal dementia. It's a degenerative condition, and it impacts the ability to speak, write, and understand things. Her behavior went from this, in a Lifetime docuseries, to now apparently alert and coherent. TMZ's Harvey Levin has some ideas.
Alcohol. Wendy, if you look at the Lifetime documentary, there was a vodka bottle in a lot of the shots, and Wendy was drunk, and she has struggled with that. But she's sober now. And if somebody is an alcoholic, but they regain their sobriety, I can't think of a single case where that justifies a guardianship.
Williams reportedly has been calling friends like Levin and recently has been doing audio-only interviews and appearances. She's hoping to have lawyer Joe Tacopina help her get her freedom. TMZ is now also reporting the NYPD is investigating the guardianship that Williams has been calling suffocating.
They called me and they wanted to find out what her capacity was. I don't know if the NYPD is going to do anything. That remains to be seen.
Our thanks to our partners there at Fox 5 in New York for giving us the very latest and some history of some of the issues surrounding talk show host Wendy Williams. But again, she may be a step closer to freedom after that psychiatrist examined her on Monday. And Wendy says she passed that test with, quote, flying colors. To talk just a bit more about conservatorships in general, I want to bring into the conversation Jeremy Rosenthal, legal analyst. Thanks so much for being with us here on Live Now from Fox. This story has captured the internet's attention because, of course, so many people woke up every day, listened into Wendy Williams for her talk show that she had for several years on television. And it seems like in the last few years, she's been facing some medical issues that have caused her to be placed in a conservatorship. First of all, can you talk about what a conservatorship is and what sort of led to that path for Wendy to be taken into that?
Let's talk about that because I think that these are concepts that most people have heard. We hear of conservatorship, we hear of guardianships, and sometimes we don't exactly know what that means. These are legal proceedings that we take when we have usually maybe an elderly person, somebody with memory issues or cognitive issues that can no longer really manage their day-to-day affairs, and they may be vulnerable financially, physically, or something like that. So what parties in most states can do, and probably every state, what they can do is you can apply for some type of conservatorship or guardianship. And what that will do is that allows a judge to sort of, based on an investigation, sometimes that could be state funded, it could be a private investigation, essentially determine who needs to be making the financial decisions for somebody. And in the case of Wendy Williams, if it's determined to be severe enough, also the housing issues and day-to-day issues. And a lot of times what happens, unfortunately, we see a lot of families that have fights over who loves grandma the most, or a lot of times, of course, there's money that is sort of the underpinnings here. And in this instance, what happened was in 2022, Wells Fargo, who was the financial institution that Wendy Williams was dealing with, had a lot of concern about some bizarre either spending behavior or some bizarre behavior from Miss Williams herself. And they were concerned that family members might be taking advantage. So they alerted the authorities. And the next thing you know, we find ourselves in one of these legal proceedings where the judge is hearing about mental evaluations, medical evaluations, psychological evaluations. And yes, my understanding is that she's been diagnosed with frontotemporal dementia, which again, I'm a lawyer, not a medical professional, but my understanding is that's not a condition that gets better over time or heals. So if that's what a judge is looking at, you would think a guardianship or conservatorship would be appropriate.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because another person that we have heard of the word conservatorship, I think we all remember the Free Britney movement and what happened there. She was under that conservatorship for several years after she had what she even called a psychotic break. And eventually she was able to be removed from it as well. And just sort of watching the video back of Wendy in her prime on the show, it seems hard to believe. And as she's now speaking out a little bit more, that this is maybe what's right for her. When we're talking about these conservatorships, is there a level that things are different in between? You said sometimes they control the money, sometimes the money and the housing. It's just interesting to see that she's been put away in this facility with what she says feels like a prison.
There's different types of guardianships. One, for instance, would be something that is temporary, right? Maybe in the case of Britney Spears, if it's mental illness, if it's some type of psychosis that can be treated, something that allows for the ward, as they are known, to essentially get better. In many instances, there are guardianships over minors or people who we know will obviously not always be minors and then will become adults and fully capable and fully functional. And then you have instances where you do have permanent injury or a permanent diagnosis. And for anybody that's watching, these are obviously Wendy Williams in her case is a severe outlier. If you know of an elderly person that is particularly isolated, or you're concerned about their well-being, or if they're not able to take care of themselves, or sometimes you might see erratic spending habits, then it may be appropriate to sort of inquire as to their well-being. Because again, the law does provide for remedies for people in this situation to where others can sort of step in and manage. Again, a lot of times it's just sort of these breeding grounds for infighting amongst family members. And obviously nobody ever wants to see that. Wendy Williams, in this instance, her family kind of feels like she's been kept away. The guardian who has been appointed in this case is somebody who has it seems has kind of kept the family a little bit at arm's length. It's natural for the family to kind of want to struggle against that. And it's also natural for Wendy Williams herself, obviously, to disagree with what is happening to her and her treatment. That said, the filings in this case, the medical tests that the judge is looking at are sealed. We don't know what those do. We don't know the results of those tests, and we don't know necessarily what they say. So there's a lot of things that the judge and the inner circle are really balancing here. Of course, when we see this dramatic, situation where, she may be throwing a note from the window and then she gets taken across town in an ambulance and has a test that's released publicly, it does put some pressure on the courts. And obviously, everybody wants to get this right. Nobody wants somebody who has regained capacity or who has been misdiagnosed. Nobody wants that person to be treated this way. So, I mean, we will potentially see some legal action. I don't know if we're going to see any changes here, though.
And that was what I was going to ask you because, again, Wendy said she really wants to rely on this independent, quote unquote, report that she just had after she was taken to the hospital to test her mental cognitive abilities on Monday of this week. Can she sort of submit that separately to the court? Does it require a specific filing? I know you briefly touched on that.
You absolutely can. The question is it going to carry much of any weight, and is it really comparable to some of the other testing that she has been exposed to in the past? Going through guardianship training when you were learning to evaluate these types of situations, what you're taught to do is to ask layered questions. The test that she was given, my understanding is, what day of the week is it? Who's the president of the United States? Where do you live? What's your name? These types of questions. To really diagnose these types of situations, you need questions such as, what did you do yesterday? Talk me through what you ate for breakfast a few days ago. Talk me through, do some math issues. There's a famous test that tests for dementia, which is to have the patient draw a clock. Because people with these type of cognitive disabilities really struggle at those types of very basic things. So you can certainly submit this test to the judge, but again, I don't know that a test by a doctor like that is going to necessarily be able to counterbalance probably some pretty thorough testing, which has been done in the past and may be done in the future. And look, even if these diagnoses of her are accurate, there's always exceptions to the rule. Maybe she is in a better mental state than she was before. And who knows why that could be the case. So the court's certainly going to want to measure twice and cut once, you would think, with regards to this. So I do think the court would consider a new evaluation, but I don't know that it's going to be everything. And we also have to remember, this is the same group of lawyers, the same judges who have been evaluating over and over Miss Williams for 3 years. So nothing is really going to be completely new to them.
And Jeremy, I have to ask you again, the public is very invested in the health and well-being of Wendy Williams. Of course, I mentioned the Free Britney movement that happened as well a few years ago. Does that have any impact? Does that sort of pressure require folks to start taking a much closer look? As you said, the courts, they don't want to get this wrong. They don't want to come out on the other side blamed for anything that maybe they could have done to make sure that Wendy was in the best hands.
Mm-hmm. This is like in a criminal case, we don't want to convict somebody wrongfully. If it takes going to court 50 times to get it right in Wendy Williams' case, it's worth it. So I think any exposure that this situation has to daylight is certainly a healthy thing. Obviously, the courts and the judges and the doctors who have been treating her are the most familiar with her. So you would think that that the people sort of on the inside are going to have a little more information and knowledge than the rest of us would. But again, I don't think that this scrutiny hurts. I don't think it hurts in any way, shape, or form. And again, if it takes 50 times of going to court to get it right on somebody's liberty, it's worth it, or 100 times, or 200 times, or whatever it takes. So this obviously is a very severe case, a very serious case, and nobody anywhere wants somebody to be misdiagnosed and have their life completely taken away from them.
And of course, we know Wendy is also advocating for herself at this point. You talked about how she's done several interviews, talked on the phone to TMZ's Harvey Levin, as well as done a full interview on The Breakfast Club as well. This press tour that she has is going to continue later on this week, having this from the New York Post. She's set to appear on The View after you see they're begging for help in this case. With all of the public, again, and as she's speaking out, will this help her? Will any of this be taken into account, watching and listening as Wendy advocates for herself in these very public interviews? Can that be used in court as well?
It can help her if she's able to hold herself out very well. It helps her if she's able to answer some complicated questions. It helps her if she's able to show layers of thinking and details that you would expect somebody who would be able to manage their own affairs. It could backfire very badly if she doesn't perform well, if she missteps, if she says something that is kind of like an off-key piano that everybody listening sort of painfully realizes, oh, maybe they're right about her. And look, one of the most difficult things for somebody in her situation is to get people to believe her. It's always the alcoholic who's going to say, I don't have an alcohol problem. It's always going to be the person who, if we think that if we think that they're suffering psychosis or psychotic, well, of course they're going to say that they're fine. So we don't know what level of credibility to give somebody that's self-reporting like that. But she could conceivably do herself a lot of favors if she performs well. She could also hurt herself very badly if she does not.
All right, legal analyst Jeremy Rosenthal here to help us break down the very latest as it pertains to this Wendy Williams case and in her conservatorship. Jeremy, before I let you go, any final thoughts of things that the audience should be looking out for in these next coming days?
This is a very bizarre thing, throwing a note out the window, wanting to be rescued, and then having this all done very publicly. This is a very bizarre thing. And not only that, when we talk about these types of conservatorships, when we talk about guardianships, again, these are really courts that are helping people, helping families really across this country that are trying to care for elderly people, that are trying to protect them from abuse, from isolation. And just, it's important to remember that Wendy Williams is an outlier. It's good that it's shining light on the entirety of the system. That's always a positive. And the fact that her case has gotten so weird and so bizarre in a weird way is sort of a blessing like that. But yeah, we're going to see what happens. I wouldn't expect a lot to change. I really wouldn't, but you never know. Maybe this is a great day for her and a great thing to happen. We'll just have to stay tuned.
All right, Jeremy Rosenthal here to help us break down the very latest. We appreciate you for being with us here on Live Now.
Have a great night.
All right, did want to bring that to you as well. Let's go ahead and also check in with our partners there at Fox 5 in New York. They've been talking a lot as Wendy did appear on Good Day there at Fox 5. Let's listen in to a bit more of what happened when she called into the show.
Are we on TV?
Yes, we're on TV.
For the first time since Wendy Williams plastered a note to the 5th floor window of the Coterie Memory Care facility begging for help, she calls into Good Day New York with her friend Gina and explains what went down to Rosanna Scotto.
Gina, Wendy had those tests yesterday, right?
Correct. He had those tests. She's been deemed she is not incapacitated. I passed with flying colors.
I know.
Those tests consisting of a psychiatric evaluation at Lenox Hill Hospital. Wendy says she scored a perfect 10 out of 10, showing she has mental clarity, something that would likely not be possible if she was suffering from the degenerative cognitive condition aphasia, which she was diagnosed with last year.
The court says they were going to do some testing on you. Did you not really trust their testing and you wanted somebody independent to do it for you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want independently tested, and that is what I want, and that is what I got.
Wendy has been under guardianship for the last few years. She has said she's being treated like a prisoner, including, she says, being locked in that memory care facility without the ability to leave.
As far as me being able to go outside, I'm not allowed. You know, I have to stay in this building.
Right.
In order to go to the gym, which is on the 3rd floor, I have to be permitted.
Wendy says she doesn't have a personal cell phone, nor can she access any of her money. Every move is controlled by a guardian. She's hoping yesterday's test helped finally end the guardianship.
I'm just curious, okay? Would you be open to having a sober companion, a financial consultant, if they moved you out of that guardianship?
Well, as far as a sober companion, I don't need that. I am not drinking ever in my life. You know what I'm saying? And by the way, I am a financial advisor. I've had that for a year. Listen, of course, a financial advisor.
When asked what life would look like if the guardianship ends, Wendy said she has options.
What do you want people out there to know about you and what you hope for your future?
Well, you mean as far as staying in New York?
Yes.
Staying in New York, going back to work, and what will I do? I have options, but in terms of getting out of guardianship, that is my number one most important thing.
All right, our thanks to our partners there at Fox 5 in New York for, again, wrapping up some of what happened during that phone call. We have the entire phone call, that segment that happened earlier today on Good Day New York. Let's listen into some of that.
Hold on, let me connect you.
Okay. Hey, you know.
Rosanna.
Hey, Wendy.
Rosanna.
Yes, tell me how you're doing.
Well, are we on TV?
Yes, we're on TV.
Oh my gosh, hi.
Hi.
So I'm on the phone with my friend Gina.
Good morning.
Good morning, Gina. So, Wendy, yesterday, the last we saw, you were leaving with police officers going to the hospital.
Right. I'm currently at the hospital.
You're currently at the hospital. What's going on there today?
Well, Gina is more, Gina can elaborate on everything, and I'll just co-sign. Go ahead.
Okay, Gina, Wendy had those tests yesterday, right?
Correct. He had those tests. She's been deemed she is not incapacitated.
I passed with flying colors.
I know.
And you know, I think it's great news, and it's public, and everybody knows, you know, factually that Wendy's not incapacitated.
You know, Wendy, the thing is, the court says they were going to do some testing on you. Did you not really trust their testing, and you wanted somebody independent to do it for you?
Absolutely. I want independently tested, and that is what I want, and that is what I got. And you know, Gina can tell you a little bit more. Look, it's not that I'm scared to talk. It's just under these circumstances, there's certain people that I don't care to talk to or talk about. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course. You and I have been talking the whole time, and you know that I have your back. And I'm just curious, okay? Would you be open to having a sober companion, a financial consultant, if they moved you out of that guardianship?
Well, as far as a sober companion, I don't need that. I am not drinking ever in my life. You know what I'm saying? And by the way, I am a financial advisor. I've had that for a year. Listen, of course, a financial advisor. Of course, somebody to look after my money. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
but
because
the money that I have right now is all with my guardian person.
Right. And by the way, they're taking fees out every month, right?
Oh, please, listen. I'll talk to you behind the scenes,
okay.
Rosanna.
I know. So, Wendy, are you okay? How do you feel today, and how long are you going to be in the hospital for?
Well, I'm waiting to see my lawyer, Sadatu Salami, and I saw her yesterday. She'll be here today. And I got a few other people that I have to speak with, you know. Gina, continue talking, please.
So, Gina,
we're just trying to talk. Yeah.
So Gina, can you take this latest testing, bring it before the judge, and say, let Wendy out now?
Absolutely. These are independent results. This is from a hospital, a very well-known hospital. It's independent. It's factual. I would be very disappointed, and I would be very concerned if the judge has an issue with those tests.
You know what I don't understand, Wendy, is they're locking you up like you committed a crime.
Yes. I have to tell you something, you know, and you know I'm on the 5th floor. It's called the memory unit, you know. And this is a floor, you know, where, you know, you don't remember anything. Like, really? You know, and as far as me being able to go outside, I'm not allowed.
And that was part one of that interview where Wendy was sitting down with Good Day New York discussing that conservatorship situation. Let's listen back into the remaining part here.
You know what I don't understand, Wendy, is they're locking you up like you committed a crime.
Yes. I have to tell you something, you know, and you know I'm on the 5th floor. It's called the memory unit, you know. And this is a floor, you know, where, you know, you don't remember anything. Like, really? You know, and as far as me being able to go outside, I'm not allowed. I have to stay in this building.
Right.
In order to go to the gym, which is on the 3rd floor, I have to be permitted. You know what I'm saying? And then I have somebody, who works in the building, walk me downstairs. Well, I'm in the scooter, but downstairs, and the man who's working me out, he comes outside to spot me as I work out. In terms of how much it costs, it has to be approved by, my guardian person. Like, my money is like in the air. Like, oh God, this is my life.
I know it's your life. And I know you want to take control of it. And, like, I can't even call you back. You don't know your phone number. They've given you some kind of, like, weird kind of phone that you could...
No.
What?
I have a landline phone. My guardian person has been having my phone for years now. I mean, it's unbelievable. I can't search my phone. I can't. My phone is my phone. My phone is, oh my gosh. I have a landline phone, like I said.
Okay.
It's horrible.
Wendy, you're on Good Day New York right now. What do you want people out there to know about you and what you hope for your future?
Well, you mean as far as staying in New York?
Yes.
Staying in New York, going back to work, and what will I do? I have options, but in terms of getting out of guardianship, that is my number one most important thing. Gina.
Yeah, I think, just, again, having this information, Rosanna, and it's independent is a big thing, and I think it's going to open up a lot of doors. I did make a report myself, and I brought APS in. We brought NYPD in. I feel like we have the city agencies involved as well, and they're allowed to go into this case, and I think that's what we really just want to continue to do there, that the city agencies do their job.
And I have to tell you, even the cops that showed up, where I was at the coterie, these people were so nice to me. You know what I'm saying? Like the conversations that we were having. I mean, and then the FDN, just everybody has been so kind to me, and getting me to the hospital. Everybody's been fantastic here at the hospital.
So listen, Joe Tacopina, did you hire him as your attorney now? Is he going to use this information now to try to get you out with the judge?
My only attorney that I have now is Sadat Salami.
Okay.
I do know Joe, though. I do know Joe, and I don't know Diamond McCarthy. I do know Peter. I do know attorneys, but,
Okay.
There isn't anything, Rosanna, right now that legally allows Wendy to bring an attorney on board. There isn't anything.
There you go.
Okay. Well, listen, we got to get her in front of a judge and get her out of that guardianship immediately.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wendy, we're praying for you, and the minute that you're out, you got to come back on Good Day New York.
Oh, gosh, I would love that. What will I wear? It's all in storage.
You know what? You and I are going to go shopping together.
I love you.
I love you too. You know that I got your back. So we're going to get you out of that, okay?
Thank you so much.
Love you, sis.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Gina, thank you. Thanks so much. Okay.
Of course.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right, as you were listening in there, that was earlier today from Fox 5 in New York. Rosanna Scotto talking on the phone there, having a direct conversation with, of course, TV host Wendy Williams. She's currently in a conservatorship and is fighting to get out.